Hello, everyone. You're watching CBC News Today, Weekend Edition. I'm Suhana Marchand.
And I'm Andrew Nichols. Thanks for joining us today. Coming up in this half hour, the Supreme Court says the BC government does not have to pay for early treatment of autism. We'll find out what this ruling means for parents of autistic children.
But our top story this morning, a troubling picture.
A heartbreaking day for parents of autistic children. After years of lawsuits, the Supreme Court finally said no, the government does not have to pay to treat your kids. For the Autons of British Columbia, whose name is on this case, it means more debt and more fear that their son Connor won't get the therapy he needs.
The fear of losing my son. Not necessarily in a physical sense, but just losing what he's gained or losing his potential.
Nice listening, so quick.
At issue here is daily, expensive one-on-one therapy that gives many autistic children a chance at a normal life. At $40,000 to $60,000 a year, provincial health plans refuse to pay for it, and a group of BC parents called that discrimination. The Supreme Court said one sympathizes with the petitioners. However, the issue before us is not what the public health system should provide, which is a matter for Parliament and the legislature. The issue is rather whether the BC government's failure to fund these services amounted to an unequal and discriminatory denial of benefits. The court said no, because funding for all medically required treatment is not provided by law. The Canada Health Act and the relevant British Columbia legislation do not promise that any Canadian will receive funding for all medically required treatment. The scheme is a partial health plan, and its purpose is not to meet all medical needs.
Many of these parents say the provinces are blind to the cost of not providing the therapy, the cost in kids who don't make it and end up in institutions. Either way, though, the Supreme Court has now settled the matter. Governments can decide who gets help, and not everyone does. Tori Malevsky, CBC News, Vancouver.
So as you can imagine, that decision affects thousands of parents across the country. Well, we've brought together three of them today. Andrew Kavchak is in Ottawa. He and his wife are spending, hello Andrew, he and his wife are spending about $50,000 a year for treatment for their son. Beverly Sharp, hello to you, was on the parents, was one of the parents who was directly involved in that Supreme Court case that Terry Malevsky spoke about. She is in Vancouver. And Diane Burkich is the mother of a 5-year-old with autism. She is in Calgary. Well, very similar and yet disparate stories from all three of you. Let me begin with you, Beverly Sharp, out west. You were part of this Supreme Court case. It must have been heart-wrenching for you to hear that decision. What does it mean for you and for your 10-year-old daughter, Allison?
What this devastating decision means is that my child is now a second-class citizen, that her right to medical treatment is denied, and that she is not considered part of the fabric of this land. I'm a proud Canadian. I am devastated by this decision. This means that I have some hard decisions to make. I cannot keep depleting what little savings I have left. I have been sleeping on my living room floor for 7.5 years. I rent out every room in my house. I have given up privacy. I work excessive amounts of overtime. Why? Because I see a treatment that works. My child has gone from having 0 language. She now has a vocabulary of 250 words. She now dresses herself. She has learned to tie her own shoes. She has the human dignity of toileting herself and of eating appropriately. This child now has a life.
Well, you've certainly said that very eloquently. Let me ask you, Diane Burkich, and I'm sure you have stories as well of your 5-year-old son, Gabriel. You actually moved from Saskatchewan. You moved your family to Calgary, to Alberta,
right.
for better services.
That's
What
right.
was that like for you? Why did you do it?
That was the worst. That was the worst feeling for our entire family, to have left everyone behind. My husband and I had careers together of equaling 29 years of service in our prospective careers. To just pick everything up and move for the therapy that we're now receiving, the intensive 40-hour-a-week therapy, was so terribly hard. But we have made more progress with this therapy in the last 3 months than we had made in the last year and a half in the province that we were at. And it was incredibly tough, but we know, we're 100% sure that this was the best move that we could have made, and we know this therapy works.
me bring you into this discussion. Every lunchtime, what do you do?
Well, since March of this year, I've been protesting on Parliament Hill between the Centennial Flame and the steps leading up to the centre block of Parliament, because last year on December 8th, my 2-year-old son was diagnosed as suffering from autism. We immediately applied to the Ontario Preschool Autism Program for the treatment, and were placed on a waiting list. 3 weeks ago, I found out that there's no way we're going to get service before next summer. I started writing letters to politicians in January, and when I realized just how terrible our medical healthcare system is with regard to service for and treatment for autistic children, I felt I had to do something. I work downtown in Ottawa within a few blocks of Parliament Hill, and during my lunch hour I just felt I had to do something. And so I've been trying to catch every politician and journalist and doing public education with people walking by me, and so far I've managed to convince a couple of senators to make some speeches in the Senate calling for a national autism program. And this coming Tuesday, I'm happy to say that a number of MPs have agreed to table in the House of Commons a petition of mine calling for the amendment to the Canada Health Act to make ABA/IBI therapy treatment medically necessary, so that all provinces in this country will be required to deliver it as a service to autistic children.
And if it doesn't, what does it mean for you? Because you're spending a lot of money every year.
Well, that's right.
Obviously, as a parent, that's your first instinct is what can I do for my child, and I will do everything possible, right?
Well, that's true. I mean, my wife and I are depleting our savings, and because we don't net the net income that's necessary to pay $50,000 a year to hire a team of a psychologist, a senior therapist, and a team of junior therapists. We have one working with our son right now, as a matter of fact, who's coming back again tomorrow morning for a number of hours. All of these people need to be paid. They don't work for free, and the government hasn't given us in this past year 1 single cent's worth of either financial assistance or therapy service. Now, this Supreme Court decision, to me, is a step backwards to the Darwinian age that Dickens wrote about in his books about poor people. This is back to survival of the fittest, and might is right, and the wealthy who are able to go to the private sector are going to be able to do the best they can for their children, but there are thousands of parents across this country who are going to be left completely destitute and bankrupt as a result of this.
Bev Sharp is one of those parents. Bev, what is this costing you? I know you've talked about what it costs you in your heart.
This is costing me almost $40,000 a year. I am heavily into debt. I have borrowed money from my family. I cannot keep going.
What do you say to the people, though, who say, well, if you open this box and you allow for this kind of funding to happen for children with autism, it will deplete the funding that we get for Medicare across the country, then we have to fund everything?
I am so sick and tired of hearing that argument. The reality is that every dollar spent on early intensive ABA treatment is a $100 saved over the lifetime of that child becoming an expensive, institutionalized, untreated autistic adult. And let's say something about human dignity. We pride ourselves on not being a third world country. We pride ourselves on not discriminating against anyone. Our autistic children, with the stroke of a pen from the Supreme Court of Canada, are now discriminated against because they are not having access to their health care needs. This is not a novel treatment therapy.
Okay.
And I invite...
I'm going to have to stop you there just because of the time constraint, not because I'm not interested, because I could talk to you all day. But I want to end with Diane Burkich. Can you tell me a little bit about your son, about Gabriel?
Sure. Gabriel is one of my 3 children. I have 3 kids under 6 years old, and he's one. He's 5 years old, and he has autism, and he's a beautiful, beautiful child that has a lot of potential. And we love him to death, but he has a lot of deficits, and that's because that's the autism. He has deficits in language and socialization and, toilet training, and this is one therapy that we just moved everyone and everything here for, and we're so happy that we're receiving it paid by the government, and that it's been the best move ever, and he just needs this help, and we knew he had the potential to strive, and we see now the success rate of this therapy.
All of you speak with your children of such love. I'm going to thank you for your time, and obviously, as any parent would. I thank you for your time. Andrew Kavchak joining us from Ottawa, Beverly Sharp in Vancouver, and Diane Burkich, of course, in Calgary.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.